It's 25 years now since three letters, WWW, changed the world. Now, the Briton who invented the World Wide Web, Sir Tim Berners-Lee, has told the BBC that more needs to be done to protect online privacy.
Now, we're at a crossroads because it's time for us to make a big common decision. In front of us, the two roads, which way are we going to go? Are we going to continue on the road and just allow the governments to do more and more and more control, more and more surveillance? Or are we going to set up a bunch of values? Are we going to set up something like a Magna Carta for the World Wide Web and to say, actually, now it's so important, so much part of our lives, that it becomes on a level with human rights?
Sir Tim Berners-Lee there. Well, with me in the studio, Jim Killock, Executive Director of the Open Rights Group, an organisation that campaigns on digital privacy issues. And from Oxford is Luciano Floridi, Professor of Philosophy and Ethics at Oxford University's Internet Institute. And if I can start with you, Professor Floridi, do you support Sir Tim on this? I mean, a Magna Carta for the baby he invented, which he thinks has potentially turned into something of a monster now.
I would support it. If you were a bit more concrete, it is a wonderful idea, but it seems to be in need of some feet on the ground, and I'm sure that he has thought about that as well, so we need to see the details. At the moment, it might just be a wonderful idea that may perhaps lack some practicalities.
Well, just talk us through that, because I'm just thinking, UNESCO set up a scheme, what, more than a decade ago, didn't it? But that came to nothing.
Indeed, UNESCO has been working on a declaration of information ethics since roughly 2000, and through the program of Information for All. That is also a remarkable project. An enormous amount of effort has been going in that direction at the international level, and yet we have failed to reach a sufficient degree of agreement even on the fundamental points that should or should not be included in that declaration. So I'm afraid that at the moment we have an enormous need for a solution, but the solutions that we are seeing are lacking any concrete possibility of being developed down the road in the real life outside the academic discussion.
And Jim Killock, where do you stand?
Well, I'm fully in favour of what he's suggesting, and I was just say there are some projects which are gaining some traction here. In Brazil, for instance, there's a Marco de Civil where they have actually drafted legislation which will define the internet rights, the rights to privacy and information of their citizens in Brazil. We also have the Liberal Democrats in the UK proposing that we should have some very defined relationships between the state, the British state and GCHQ on the one hand, and us as users on the other.
But that's on a national scale, if you're lucky. What about preventing all those other countries delving into data if they don't subscribe to this?
Well, law has to start in nation states as much as anything else, and of course we have to work internationally too, but that does, as the other speaker is saying, take more time. So I think what we need to do is for people to sign up to the principles and to engage in the debate that Tim Berners-Lee has called for, because the first thing he wants people to do is to tell him what should actually be in this, so that we can start to understand what people really need to know in order to feel safe and secure on the internet.
But Professor Floridi, I mean, isn't it ethically sound for a government to do everything that it possibly can to protect its citizens, even if that is quite messy when it comes to the privacy of individual citizens?
It is, but if you allow me a distinction, it is not politics versus ethics. It is not the politics of security versus the ethics of privacy. It is really the ethics of welfare for a society versus the ethics of the individual privacy and protection. So if anything, the problem is even worse. Is an ethical problem of what we should privilege one way or the other. Now, I wouldn't like to give the impression that this is unresolvable. It is something that we need to discuss. However, having clear ideas of what the real debate is crucial. Now, this ethical debate has seen society place almost against the individual interest. I'm not quite sure that that is the right way of putting it. We should look more into ways of coordinating what's good for the individual as well as what is good for society, and it is doable. We just need a bit of sharp minds at work.
Jim Killick, is it doable? Because, you know, it's all very well, you know, if you were to get international agreement on the web as we use it, or maybe you understand more about the dark web.
Yes.
I don't, but, you know, there's another web out there which is completely ungovernable, isn't it?
I mean, the web is most definitely governable. The problem actually is, how do we govern the security agencies and the government when it claims to be able to have the right to just take whatever it likes, to take whatever data it likes, invade whatever networks, put malware onto everybody's computer at will? You know, that's really out of control. And I think the distinction we need to make here is between the security and privacy of individuals, which is extremely important for everything from banking through to everyday communications and your free speech. You know, all of that needs protection. And the problem is that the government's approach right now to for state security is to undermine and remove your personal security when you are banking, transacting and exchanging information. And of course that puts us all in danger actually. It creates new risks that you can't manage because you don't know what the government has or hasn't made insecure.
Professor Farideh, I mean, you said there was a solution to this, but I mean, but how? How are you going to create that, and what sort of time frame do you think are we looking at?
The time frame could be really fuzzy. The solution that myself, but other people as well, I mean, have been considering is not so much in terms of new legislation. That smacks someone who, on the liberal side, again, of making a mistake even worse. In other words, more top-down decisions, more government involved. Perhaps, and the perhaps is meant, we could look into forces outside government and legislation. Market forces of the best kind and social forces of the best kind, and look into an alliance that it is possible. We have examples which I'm happy to expand on in medical research ethics that have worked very well, where in fact there's no legislation binding, but code of conduct, which has been incredibly influential since the Helsinki Declaration in the 60s. So there are smart ways of doing this that are not necessarily either we pass some very strict legislation on what is doable or not, or it is going to be a mess anyway. I think we should look into third ways or alternative ways of understanding the problem and therefore finding a solution.
Okay. Professor Farideh, Jim Killick, I'm afraid we're out of time, but thanks both very much indeed for joining us this evening. Now, a man from Swansea who survived a serious motorbike accident has become one of the first patients in the world to have his face reconstructed using 3D printing. The team at Swansea's Morriston Hospital designed everything on a computer and then created the 3D copies, layer by layer, on a special printer. Our Wales correspondent Howell Griffith was given exclusive access to the operating theatre.